All right, man. I'm super excited to have with us today the cinematographer new horror movie. Upon the recording of this, it's actually out and available for you to check out today. It's called Don't Look Away. And this is a concept that will freak any department store fan out as this killer mannequin that is possessed by only, well, maybe Merrick knows. Um, Stalking these people, and the whole premise, according to the press release, if you guys haven't heard anything about this movie, is this killer that looks like a mannequin is spotted by our main protagonist, and after she spots it, she keeps seeing this thing. And what it is all centered around is this curse that you cannot look away from this mannequin, otherwise this curse is going to come and affect you in pretty dramatic fashion, according to the trailer that was sent to me. But Merrick, man, thank you for coming on the show. Excited to talk to you about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
So yeah, this movie, like the visuals, which was why I was really excited to talk to you, because the visual aspect of this, the way that you guys set up these shots, like the mannequin itself is creepy as hell. And but this premise is original. The only thing that even rings a bell of this ever like coming for you thing is like It Follows is what rang a
Yeah,
bell to me. And so the fact that you kind of put a similar concept to it, but the visual aspect of this mannequin that's like stalking the victims is really creepy, man. How did you come aboard this thing?
yeah. So the It Follows was definitely an inspiration for the writers of the film, Michael Mitten, who's a producer and actually an actor in the film also, and Michael Bufaro, who's the director and the writer. They go by the Michaels, and they're massive horror fans and wanted to make a horror. So yeah, here we are, and they reached out to me because they were planning to shoot in Victoria, BC on Vancouver Island, which is where I live.
Hmm.
And for people who don't know, Vancouver is a huge film center in North America, same time zone as LA,
Hmm.
better tax credits. So, yeah, tons and tons of films are shot in Vancouver, not as many in Victoria. And Victoria is just a couple hours away. So they wanted to utilize the unique looks of this city, and I live here, so it worked out, and I was really glad to come on board with them because they're talented filmmakers.
Are you a horror fan? Like, were you?
Yeah, I'm not a huge horror fan specifically, but I'm really into film. Obviously, I mean this is my
Yeah,
career,
yeah.
so yeah, I wouldn't say specifically horror, but I'm a big fan of film, and there's some amazing horror films out there that are iconic in the grand sphere of all filmmaking. So
Sure.
yeah, I love horror films when when they elicit emotions in viewers, and that's what's cool about horror. And for a cinematography perspective, what's awesome is it's not as bound in reality as a drama, let's say, or a comedy. It's you can be out there with your looks and your lighting and your because it's supernatural, it's psychological, it's so that's fun as a cinematographer. It's a lot of fun to shoot horror. This is my second project doing horror, and I hope to do more.
Right on. You talked about the lighting, and that's one thing that I noticed right away in the trailer is the way that you frame and light the mannequin is you have that classic like horror silhouette where he's backlit, and his arms or his hands look like they're like supernaturally elongated almost. And so when you got the concept or the script in front of you and you're reading this story, like talking with the Michaels and stuff, like how was the process of like figuring out how you wanted to shoot the mannequin in this?
Yeah, so Michael Buffaro and I, the director, talked a lot about um, trying to isolate the mannequin.
Mhm.
And so many ways to do that. One is silhouette. One is putting the mannequin way in the distance. So there's a lot of depth to the shot. And yeah, lots of darkness. And basically, sometimes we get a good look at the mannequin in the film, but there's a lot of points in the film, and it was kind of one of our rules of that we identified in pre-production, was that we want the viewer to really be straining at times to get a good look at this thing. And
Mhm.
you know, subconsciously they're really like, oh, I want to see more of that, because that's gonna, escalate the tension and the thrill of it.
Oh, for sure. I 100% agree with you on that because uh, one of the first interviews I ever did, a director said one of the biggest fears in horror is the fear of the unknown. Like
Yeah,
nothing inside of you, on the outside, will be ever as scary as whatever the viewer can conjure up in their own mind, type of a thing.
yeah.
So that's cool that you guys kind of use that concept in the scenes and stuff to kind of build up the tension of what the hell is this thing. So what?
Yes, yeah. That actually brings up another point, which is, I know the director and producers were they were having a bit of an internal battle about what the mannequin was going to look like.
Mm,
And Buffaro he was really for just having a straight department store mannequin, like
mm,
blank faced. And his argument was that exact idea, was that the viewer is going to subconsciously put their own fears onto that mannequin.
mhm.
And the executive producers really wanted a face for the mannequin, so you really knew that this thing was evil. um, and ultimately I think everyone came to an understanding that we were going to put a face on the mannequin. So, and I understand that from a creative and a business sense, it makes sense. And but we kept true to that lighting of keeping it in darkness, keeping it silhouetted, keeping it off in the distance, so you still didn't quite know, except for those key points where it's like, oh, okay, there it is.
You mentioned, the city that you are from having the aesthetic that was very pleasing for this story. What about the architecture and the vibe of your city do you think matched what they were looking for?
Yeah, well, I think look wise, it's a cosmopolitan city, but it's small.
Mm,
So, we have a pretty cool Chinatown district that's got really eccentric looks that we did a kind of whole scene in. There's a lot of cool older houses, which we were able to find a good house for the main location. But the advantage over Vancouver is, Vancouver's a big, huge city, and Victoria is much smaller. It's under 500,000 people.
mm,
So you still have all those kind of big city looks if you want it, but you don't have, the headaches of traffic, and they're not quite as used to film production. So, less people gawking on the street, less
mm.
locations are a little easier to secure, where in Vancouver, it's, you if you drive half an hour from one side of the city to the other side of the city, you're going to pass probably multiple film productions on any
Wow.
weekday. Um, Kind of like if you're driving through LA, similar thing. You
Yeah.
see, the film industry is embedded in the city. And so that comes with some headaches. Like, people know, you know, you got to pay big, big bucks to get this location. Where in Victoria, because film is a relatively new thing here, it's a little more lenient with some of those things, which business wise makes sense, and then makes the filmmaking process easier when you're actually in production on set on the day.
The world of film production on any scale has its challenges and its successes for sure. You guys, the thing that I love about horror movies, going to film school as a horror movie fan and kind of learning tricks of the trade and how to make more out of less, stuff like that. But what was this film for your crew cinematically, camera wise? Like, what would you say like the biggest challenge where you guys had to like think on the fly or come up with like a cool practical effect or anything that made it into the final cut that you're particularly like, this scene or this shot is like something to hang your hat on?
Well, I think the intro of the film is a really strong one. It's very fast paced and quite a lot goes on in the intro. And we closed down a street. We were shooting at night, so that obviously there's a lot of lighting involved. We wet down the street. There's a bit of a car accident. There's all kinds of things going on, and so that was super fun to shoot. And then at the end of that scene, I think is a really key moment where we meet our main character, Frankie, this young woman, and she is the one who is in this car accident, which ends up killing someone. And so she's kind of in shock. And we've just gone through this kind of quick cutting, high pace scene. And we have this moment of contemplation where my key grip, Oliver Wyndon, he set up this great dolly jib arm shot where we are super down low, ground level. We're traveling over this dead, bloody body, going up through the car headlight into this bloody windshield. And there's Frankie behind the windshield, just like, oh man,
Yeah.
And and so we go from this fast-paced scene to this really deliberate, slow, beautifully composed shot.
Hmm.
And we get onto her in kind of a medium shot, move into a medium shot, this dolly jib arm through the windshield. And then we cut to this ECU of her eyes in the rearview mirror because she notices something in the background.
Oh man.
And so that's kind of her moment where she's really got to confront her fears.
Yeah.
And she realizes she saw something and she's like, something's not right about what happened here.
Yeah.
And that's the mannequin. So yeah, I think that was a really fun scene series of shots to execute, and I think it turned out really great in the edit. And yeah, the Michaels edited the film as well, and
Hmm.
um, that's a unique thing where the director is really involved in the edit. So he was, Bafaro was very clear on set how he thought the scenes were going to cut,
Hmm.
which really helped me choosing angles and shots and um, to support the edit, because he already had a lot of the edit in his mind. And Mitten as well, really, they're a good team together.
That, yeah, I can imagine if the director already knows what he's looking for and he can convey that successfully to you. Yeah, that I got to imagine makes it a lot more clear vision for you as to what you need to do to get the thing in the can. That's awesome, man.
Sure.
What if I ever interviewed either one of them, I would ask them this question. So maybe you can answer it for me. Why a mannequin?
Well, yeah, I guess that's the premise of the film, which that it doesn't move,
Mm,
it just kills. And so that's kind of the supernatural aspect of it, is it does not move at all, but
mm,
somehow it's still killing these group of friends and people. And yeah, they kind of have to figure out over the course of the film how to defeat this thing that doesn't move but does move. So that's in the title there. Don't look away. And
yeah.
and yeah, I think it kind of comes back to that concept earlier that, you know, what you don't know is scarier than what you know, and that a mannequin is kind of a blank slate.
Mm,
You know, every viewer can put their own
spin on it.
inner psychosis fears
Yeah.
on that mannequin.
Well, for you personally, what was it that made you want to become a cinematographer? Was it a certain movie that you saw? Was it a certain genre, fascination with film in general? What led you down your path?
Yeah, so I mean it's kind of a complicated story, but both of my parents are artists, so you know, I guess I was brought up in a visual household. Uh,
Mm,
you know, when I was 8 years old, my dad would show me his photographs from a job, and he'd want me to critique them. So, um, you know, and my mom was a painter, so my mind already thought like that from the beginning. And then when I was in high school, to graduate high school, you had to do a community service project. And I just random happen chance got paired together with a local filmmaker to make this recycling film for kids in
mm,
New Mexico. I grew up in New Mexico, and I kind of put two and two together because I loved going to the movies. You know, I loved watching films, and it's weird when you're like 15, 16. I guess I never put two and two together that, oh, people like these are people's jobs are to make these movies I watch in theaters.
yeah.
And like, obviously, this guy I was working for was just super small scale doing little corporate things and stuff. But um, yeah, I just put two and two together and was like, wow, okay, you can do this. This is something you can do. And that was kind of it. That was I wanted to make films, and specifically when I was a kid, I wanted to make ski films. I was really into skiing,
Mm,
and that's kind of why I came up to Canada. I came up to Canada to go to film school, but also ski. I wanted that specific combo.
mm.
And Vancouver, BC was kind of the best place on the planet to do that. Um, and yeah, so since I was 16, I knew I wanted to be a cinematographer, and um, have pursued it ever since. And yeah, I've been doing it full time for well over a decade now. And it's every film is different, and I really enjoy my career.
Where do you like where would you say like some of the most unique shooting locations you've gotten to go to are?
Well, all the narrative films, the fiction films I've done have all been local.
Okay.
That's not where my travel is. It's in, you know, in British Columbia, traveling around British Columbia, but
Mm,
um, which is great because BC has such a diversity of landscapes. It's why Vancouver's a big film mecca, because there's the real ocean is right there. There's a big, huge city. There's massive mountains. There's a desert a few hours away. So it's got all these different looks. But for documentary, I've traveled all over the world, and I really like to make documentary features, and I like to make narrative films as well. So I like that balance of getting to do a bit of both. But yeah, the last year for a documentary feature on ancient DNA, I traveled to Iceland, Greenland, Mallorca, Copenhagen, London, like all over the world, and I feel very fortunate. I get to see those type of places for work and talk to just really interesting people. Yeah, I feel lucky. It's my job sometimes.
man, I have so much respect for documentarians. The amount of work that goes into any movie is pretty extraordinary, but documentaries, man, I think people don't appreciate the amount of work that goes into making a documentary. We had to do um, I went to LA Film, and they made us do like a film of every genre,
Mhm.
and just short stuff like 10-15 minutes. And I made a documentary about my friend's haunted house attraction because he was doing his 10-year anniversary. And
Cool.
to do like a 12-minute documentary took me like 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, like 12 minutes in the can, 2.5 months. These guys are making, 90 to 120-minute documentaries, like years. And
Yeah.
and people like they don't take that into account when they just sit down and they turn on Netflix and watch these things. Like, man, so the fact that you're doing both, much respect, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean the easiest way to put that is that, to shoot Don't Look Away was about a 20-day shoot. Obviously there's multiple weeks of pre-production, planning everything beforehand, which is just the biggest key to shooting any narrative film. Got a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously they have a ton of post-production. But that's one of my big shoots last year. And then my other big shoot is this documentary. And it's like I was shooting that for a year, you know. So and they're both going to be about the same length finished product, but that's kind of the
It's
difference.
wild.
Yeah.
Uh, with this documentary that is coming up, is there anything on the horizon that you have got in the future once that one is completed?
I mean, that's kind of the nature of being a freelancer is the producer I did that documentary with, he has lots of irons in the fire and films that may or may not happen. And then, same with the Michaels, they have, their next project that, and every producer out there, they have to be pitching multiple projects and hopefully one bites. And as soon as you get that little bit of funding that kind of starts the ball rolling,
Mm-hmm.
seems like then all those other funding channels start to come on board and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you have a film. So until they get a signed contract for money, I don't believe anything's real. But yeah, there's possibilities for the next year, and I hope some come to fruition. But yeah, I mean, I'm used to that. Is you do these amazing projects and then you don't know when your next paycheck's going to come. Sometimes it's you're slammed busy for a long time, and other times it's like, oh, okay, well, let's see what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
So
What what advice would you give to someone getting out of film school, 19, 20, 22 years old, and they're looking to like seriously insert themselves into the entertainment, filmmaking industry?
yeah,
What would you tell that person?
yeah, I think it's important to work on the big shows. Um, so that usually involves joining the union somehow.
Mm,
Um, and I say that because it doesn't matter if you want to work in indie film forever. It doesn't matter if you want to do documentaries forever. It's just, I think it's important to see how the biggest do it.
mm,
So I got out of film school and I started lamp opping and rigging and best boying in the lighting department.
mm,
And, I did quite a few little indie projects and like MOWs and stuff. And, and eventually one of those got unionized where the union was so busy that summer in Vancouver that they just needed more people.
mm,
Um, so I was super lucky and got to skip the whole permittee process and getting your days to join the union, and I just went straight in full member, which a lot of the old timers don't like. But yeah, so I mean, but I got to work on films like Planet of the Apes, and watch um, Andrew Leslie, I think I might be getting that wrong, but he's no longer alive, but he shot Lord of the Rings, you know. So I got to watch, you know, master cinematographer's work. That was $160 million movie, which, you know, I'm not working on anything remotely close to that type of budget, but it's super interesting to see, you know, what you can do when money is no object.
Yeah.
And you pick up all these tricks of the trade over the process, and you learn how things are done correctly. And then at the same time, I think it's really important to do your own projects and to do small projects. And you know, the whole time I was working on that union stuff, I was shooting little short films for people, or you know, lighting short films for other DPs, or um, you know, I made my own full length ski film. You know, took the whole winter off, saved all my money from lamp hopping all summer, made a ski film. Um, I'd be editing that ski film with a business partner in the summer. So I'd be working on set like 12, 14 hours a day in the union. And then I'd go home and I'd edit all night and sleep like 2 or 3 hours, rinse, repeat. And I would never, ever do that now. I was like, you know, 22.
Yeah.
So I had energy to do it. But you know, I think you need a variety of things because you don't know where your film career is going to go necessarily.
Right.
So you need a variety of experiences when you come out of film school, and that prepares you for whatever avenue is going to interest you and present itself to you.
Then thank you so much for taking the time out and talking with us today. Don't look away again. It looks terrifying, and it's all because you guys made, pardon my French, a fucking mannequin look scary. And the I know the horror community, down here in Central California, I host one of the biggest Halloween conventions, and that fan base that is there, they flock to indie horror. Like it is very much, just like this cult community of people who will, sure, they'll go spend their money to see the Nun 2 when it's in the multi-screen theater, but be damned if they ain't on every streaming service, like looking for the drops weekly. And this one is, I just got like an inkling, it's going to be one of those ones that like people will talk about. So again, congratulations on all the work that you guys put together on it, and tell everybody where they can see the thing, or where they can see you. I know the movie itself is on all streaming services right now, Amazon Prime, that kind of stuff. Looking at it today, it was available. But where can they follow you?
Yeah, so they can follow me. You know, my Instagram is just my name at Athan Merrick. But yeah, I think don't look away. I really hope that community enjoys the film. It's a fun ride and a scary ride. And yeah, so not only streaming platforms, but it's in theaters
Oh, nice.
today, September 1st. It's got about 300 screens around North America.
Right on.
So in Canada, it's Cineplex Theaters is carrying it. In the States, I think some AMC theaters are playing it. And what's the I'm blanking right now. What's the theater chain based out of Austin, Texas?
Oh man, is this Cineplex?
No, that's Canadian. I'm blanking on it right now. Oh, Alamo, Draft House Alamo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that theater chain I know is carrying it at all of their theaters. So yeah, down in the States, there's lots of places to see it on the big screen this weekend. And I hope people enjoy it because obviously big screen is fun, sounds better,
Oh
better
yeah.
looking. Yeah.
There's nothing better than watching any movie on the big screen, man. Like I know a few people who will rent, our state theater out just to play older films for
Yeah.
that very reason. Like, and there's nothing like going to the movie theater and seeing it on the screen and in the dark and with your friends and everything else, especially horror movies. Horror movies in the movie theater with your friends, tough to beat.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So that's yeah, go see it in the theaters. It's releasing today, September 1st. So
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again so much. And we will definitely have to get you back on. Our channel does a variety of film podcasts. So maybe we'll get you back on and talk about that documentary at some point.
cool. Sounds good, man.
Uh,